If there's one takeaway I want to send out there, it never ends. We are getting attacked every day. When I say attacked, I don't mean like there's somebody in our systems, but we're getting hundreds of thousands of emails, and I'm not just saying hundreds of thousands. We have a count of how much we have. Hundreds of thousands of emails per month that is targeted specifically either for an individual, the company, or just in general phishing attempts. Most of them are getting blocked by system platforms that we have.
Welcome to CyberSecurity Heroes, an IRONSCALES podcast about you, the heroes of cybersecurity. You're about to hear and learn practical and experiential knowledge in our conversations with security leaders and practitioners and other influential InfoSec stars, so we can become more cyber resilient and safer together. CyberSecurity Heroes is brought to you by IRONSCALES, the most powerfully simple email security platform. And I'm your host, Brendan Rudd. And now, let's get into the show. Hey Ron, welcome to the show.
Hey Brendan, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time out to join us, and congrats on your newborn. I know
Thank you.
you must be a little bit exhausted, so we really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us today.
Not a problem, Don. Just a little bit, it's a 2-hour schedule, so 2 hours sleeping, 2 hour feeding, 2 hours sleeping, 2 hour feeding.
So we'll forgive you today. So before we dive in, I would love to understand what you're working on these days and a little bit about your background.
Of course. Well, today I'm actually on parental leave, but before I was on parental leave, I'm the director of corporate IT in Mercer Advisors. I'm also the head of information security over there. And then we have a lot of projects going on in the pipeline. We have a lot of ransomware attacks recently, so we're working on how to prevent them. We're working on how to mitigate these problems. On the technology side, we're working on a lot of automations. We've leveled off in our information security programs, and right now we have a big push towards automations and client portals that it's going to allow our clients to have easier access to their records, which is very important this day and age.
Maybe elaborate a bit more on both of those two projects. We can start with ransomware, seeing as though that's kind of frontline and center.
Yeah, of course. We're increasing the way we show our users how to use the tools they currently have. We train them. We have a platform that sends training once every quarter. We have a platform that sends out mock emails to show them how phishing attempts happen. Because since most of the ransomware attacks originate from some sort of a phishing attack, a spear phishing attack, or credentials that are not being used correctly. So internally, the IT department, we also review the credentials, usernames, passwords. If some of them have not been used for a long time, we disable them, of course. And from the user side, we teach them how to deal with actors coming in and saying that they're, Bank of America or Chase or some internal person, our CEO or CFO, how to recognize those emails, how to report them, because it's important for us to know what's going on in our environment and block them afterwards. So it's a whole round effort from the entire company. We've been doing a pretty good job so far. Hopefully, knock on wood. It's just a matter of keeping up with whatever's happening on the outside world.
Interesting. What can you share from what you're seeing that maybe other companies in your space could benefit from understanding?
If there's one takeaway I want to send out there, it never ends. We are getting attacked every day. When I say attacked, I don't mean like there's somebody in our systems, but we're getting hundreds of thousands of emails, and I'm not just saying hundreds of thousands. We have a count of how much we have. Hundreds of thousands of emails per month that is targeted specifically either for an individual, the company, or just in general phishing attempts. Most of them are getting blocked by system platforms that we have. minority of them gets through. But since we have all these training programs and everything in place, it's they haven't been able to gain access so far. And I'm saying so far because we're always keeping a watchful eye on our systems. It's very important to do that. It, it's just everybody's, and I want to say everybody's, most of the companies out there are being attacked, if they know it or not, by spear phishing, phishing in general. Somebody's trying to get their credentials, and they just keep on coming on a daily basis.
That's an insanely high number. So when you talked about automation, how does automation play into dealing with that scale of attack on a daily basis?
So we have some platforms we have recognized these attacks already. So the automations we have mitigate those attacks. They block those emails. Oh, they block these websites in a matter of seconds, or even like up to a minute or two when they reach out to us. When they hit our servers, they recognize that that's not a legitimate website, and it gets blocked. We have our own platforms, and of course, if you guys ever tried to press on a dangerous link in Chrome or Edge or either the new browsers, those browsers provide some protection as well because they recognize those websites. So we have a layered approach from the top down to our systems, and it helps a lot when we have that everything is in place.
When dealing with those type of numbers, are you relying primarily on technology to take up the slack?
Yeah, we rely heavily on technology to do the bulk of it from the top down. The top portion of the funnel is always a technology base. When we get down to the individual level, after it passes all the filters that we have, all the automations that we set up, it gets down to the individual email box. That's where the human part gets into play. So if something gets through, that's why we have that training that allows us to or allows our users to recognize an attempt like that and report it. Once they report it, there is an automated process also that takes place, and there's also human eyes at the end of the day looking at a specific email to see if it's actually an attempt or not.
Got it. And when we last spoke, you talked about some other challenges that you were facing around merger and acquisition and revisiting existing security programs.
Yeah, so we are heavy on mergers and acquisitions, and when you bring in a company that is not already your own and try to integrate them into your company, there's a lot of challenges that you need to address. They have their own specific security program, and you need to integrate into yours. Sometimes things don't match, and you have to clear out the way they used to do things and start merging them with the way that the company, the acquiring company, do their security programs. There's always challenges because people are used to doing A and B, and then we're telling them to do D, C, and G. So it's a lot of training. Again, training is very important. Teaching people how to use new technologies because the technology needs to be trained a little bit. So it's challenging, but it's something that always evolving from new mergers and acquisition companies, because each company, they have their own thing going on, and then we need to write a merging plan from what they do to what we do and execute it in a relatively fast fashion, since we don't want to leave a gap in the security posture.
So, two follow-up questions. One, how do you address a pre-existing or non-existing security culture from the previous company, and how do you merge that into your company? And two, how do you deal with technical debt from the previous company?
So we treat any merger and acquisition company as a new employee. So as new employees get their initial training on cybersecurity, since they never had one before they got to us, and if they had one in their previous company, they had to align to what we have. So we start them off from scratch, like new employees coming into the company, getting trained from the ground up for cybersecurity, how it looks like, passwords, all the basics, and then moving them through to phishing, how it looks like, working from home, since everybody's almost either working from home or having a hybrid environment now. Some people move back to the office permanently, but that's a minority. So we started training from the ground up like they're new employees. technical debt in new company in M&A companies, it's not very relevant to us since they when we onboard companies, it takes us 6 months to a year, but we give them our technology. So all the technical debt they had in their technology just goes away since they're no longer on their technology. It's not to say that our technology does not have a technical debt. It does. If 95% of companies do, it's just they're aligned more to what we do in our debt.
Got it. So if we will go back to my question on revisiting this security program, you were brought in to create a new program, or did you come to revise an existing program?
I was brought in to create a new security program for Mercer advisors. The previous there was not a real security program beforehand. I had to come in and write one from scratch, and of course, writing one from scratch is not as it's complicated endeavor, but there's a lot of documentation out there that can help you do it, including using templates, which is a great resource because when you use the templates, you take them and then you just custom tailor them to what the company does. So security protocols are almost the same across the board. If it's NIST, if it's ISO, both of these concentrate on two different aspects of the programs. But if you combine the two, you get a pretty holistic, good program. And if you combine two templates from each one of them, you get a pretty 99% rounded template. All you need to do is custom tailor it to what your specific company does. And by doing so, you don't need to spend like months and years to write something. You can do it in a matter of weeks or even a couple of months if you work on it on a daily basis and only on that.
For other folks in a similar position, building out new programs from scratch, what are some discoveries, learnings, pitfalls that you could share with others that may be going through a similar process?
There's a lot of reading and understanding involved. You have to have a background in cybersecurity and technology to understand what's going on in those policies. You also have to keep your eye on legalities. Always have if your company has a general counsel or a lawyer, always consult them with what you're writing. Sometimes there's clauses in these documents that need to align to some sort of a if you're a financial institution, so you have to be FINRA and the SEC aligned with their policies. If you're medical, you need to have HIPAA policies. So it's important to understand that the crossover between the legality and the actual policy itself. Some policies will need to align to certain state, local, federal regulations, and it's important to keep your eye on that.
The last time we spoke, we were talking about some misconceptions around information security and cybersecurity and how this affects the recruiting industry for cyber and info security.
Yeah, the recruiting efforts in the cybersecurity world. Not long time ago, there was an article in the news, and it got prominent headlines saying there's 450,000 open positions for cybersecurity in the United States, not the world. In the United States, 450,000, which doesn't align exactly to what I see out there. I see a lot of entry level, mid level, and even senior level cybersecurity individual looking for work for long periods of time. So there is some sort of a misalignment with the open positions and people that are trying to look for a work, and that stems from a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication in the job interview process and what exactly companies are looking for. I've seen around a lot of job descriptions that asks cybersecurity analysts to have a degree in mathematics or 5 years experience for entry level jobs. Now those requirements are far-fetched. You don't need a mathematical degree, mathematics degree to become a cybersecurity analyst. An entry level is not 5 years experience. 5 years is mid-level experience. And so I think there's a misalignment between what people are looking for and what's out there, because I see a lot of cybersecurity individuals looking for work on one hand, and the other hand, they're saying there's a cybersecurity shortage. So something is not aligned here. And I see a lot of it, and I help a couple of people, entry level people, work on their resumes, which is also important. But I think it's a two-sided coin. A lot of people say, a lot of people say to the candidates a lot, you guys need to work on your resume. You need to put your best foot forward. But if the recruiting managers or recruiters um, are not looking in the right places or have the wrong requirements for these kind of individuals, they will never meet. So there needs to be a shift in the way recruiting managers thinking and hiring managers are thinking on the cybersecurity talent. Because, and I saw this a post on LinkedIn once. There's a individual I follow. He said cyber criminals do not have a degree. Why are you looking for a degree with your cybersecurity analyst? It doesn't make sense. Now it's very loaded and it's very simplistic, but it's kind of true. If Why would you need if the person is smart, if they had the proper certification? And college is not for everyone. There's college is very expensive in the United States. Some people just can't sit down for like 6-8 hours and study. They have a different studying mechanism, but these people are not less smart. They're not less educated, and they're not less qualified from other people to do the job. So it's just a matter of thinking outside the box when you're looking for cybersecurity talent. And that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think many would agree with you, including myself. So if we will tie this back into starting at this company, building a new security program, can you walk us through your hiring philosophy?
Of course, yeah. When I got to Mercer Advisors, again, they had the usual job description kind of mentalities when they hired people. You need 5 years experience. You need a degree, 5 years experience in a related field or in engineering. Sometimes that appears on job descriptions, and I made a shift to me and my team. I changed the line that says be bachelor in science or bachelor in arts in a related field is acquired. I changed it that, yeah, it's great. It's great if you have a degree. If you could afford it and you can do it, awesome. If you couldn't, then we are willing to substitute that for 4 years experience. So if we're looking for 4 years experience for a degree or for his experience, and it would be like 8 years experience. So it's just a matter of math. If you have 8 years experience, to me, it's like you have a full college degree and you have 4 years experience. And that's the way I shifted. So that's the way we started recruiting people. And we got candidates that were sometimes were better because they saw, oh well, since I don't have a degree, but I do have all these certifications, credentials, experience, I might fit and I can apply for this position. So we got a lot more applications in, and some of them were a great match to what we were looking for. And like I said, I always think outside the box, see the potential of the person have, and not what they did in the past or what their past experience was with education. I look at where they worked before. I looked at their progression. I looked at, did they got some certifications? Did they do some courses? Did they work in the field that I'm looking for them to look at for a number of years? Because, if you have 5 years experience as a programmer, I don't really care if you have a bachelor's in philosophy. It really doesn't connect to what I'm looking for. So yeah, so it helped us a lot to find these individuals that were afraid to apply.
And if we will take it down to the junior roles.
The junior roles, it's easier with the junior. It's a lot of it easier with the junior roles because your expectation is for them to have zero years experience. So if you have 0 years experience, I at least want them to have some certifications. Like if I'm looking for a entry level service desk, just as an example, or entry level analyst, they have to have like an A plus, a network plus, a security plus, something to show me that they studied, they understand the material, and they passed the test. Not everybody can pass the test if they learn hard enough, and that's great for these people that can do it. But when I 16, 17 years ago took my A plus, network plus, and security plus, I understood what's going on. Like I took it because I wanted to learn the material and not just pass the test. If you're taking it to pass the test, then it's going to show in your work performance, and eventually you're not going to be, employed anymore because you just took it to pass a test. But if you took it to understand the material, that's what I'm looking for. If you have 0 years experience, that's great, but I need to see somewhere that you have your preliminary education with certifications and not necessarily with a bachelor's degree.
And what is your point of view on training? Because many folks will tell you you need to hit the ground running. There is no training. So, how do you support junior hires, entry level hires?
Oh, it always depends on the level of training. There's companies, big companies that can provide longer term training. Smaller companies, personnel wise, they just can't hire someone and train them for 6 months. It's just not financially feasible for them to do. That's why when a new person comes, a junior person comes to our company in the technology department, we do provide them training for a specific amount of time. It's just, again, our company is relatively small. We can't provide them 6 months of training. We provide them about a month or two of training, and then they need to catch on relatively fast. But if for bigger companies that it works for them, of course, if they hire junior people, they have to train them for longer periods of time.
And what do you say to folks who see those entry level positions but require 2+ years of experience?
Apply. It doesn't cost you any money to apply. Just apply for those positions, and if you get an interview, put your best work, put your best foot forward, and tell them why you think that you can do the job. I'm saying to you, to everybody that see positions that they think they can't apply to, that to apply to those positions anyway. If they get and apply with your best resume, and if you get an interview, again, put your best foot forward and give them your added value, why you think that you can be the candidate they're looking for. But never give up. Don't just say, oh, they want 2.5 years. I'm not going to apply. Apply anyway.
And from like all the resumes that you've seen in your career, what advice would you give to entry level job seekers? What are some of the do's and don'ts that you would like to highlight?
Well, yeah, as a hiring manager in the past, I think 4 years, I've read thousands of resumes, and it's pretty simple rules to follow. Keep your resume to 2 pages long. As a hiring manager, I don't have time to read 10 pages of resumes. I need to skip. I need to skip the first half of the resume. If it interests me, I read the rest. If it doesn't, I don't read the rest. Put bullet points in your resume, so it's easier for someone to read and catch really fast the essence of what you're doing. Don't have word salads. And word salads is what people used to put in their resumes, like I do technology, infosec, C++, Python, in these commas in the bottom of their resumes or on the top, just to have the automated, the ATSs read it and say, oh, this person does all of that, to pass them on. Don't do that. It's because when a person sees it, I'm like, I don't understand what this person doing. And people tend to put a lot of things in that word salad. Don't do that. Avoid that at all costs. Bullet points. Be specific of what you achieved. Like you lowered the call rate 10%. You lowered the phishing rates 15% to a level that was required by the CISO. Put some numbers in there. If you don't have a lot of experience, don't do double lines in your resume. It just doesn't look good. It's clear that you don't have a lot of experience, so it's just very hard to read. And again, think about the reader. I need to easily know. And since I get for each job application, we get like 400 to 500 resumes, like in a couple of weeks. So there's a lot of things to read, and my company specifically do not use an ATS. So there is a human reading all of those resumes. So think about how you can grab my attention, the recruiter attention, in 5 seconds. Don't put like colors, bulks. We don't need all of that. Just make it interesting for us to read for the job. Yeah, that's all the advice I have.
Staying on this thread for a few more minutes, you mentioned like every resume is reviewed by a human. Can you walk us through your process? Who is involved? Who's responsible for setting the requirements in the job description, etc.?
Usually, hiring managers set up the job descriptions. They set up the requirements. So if I hire someone directly that reports to me, I write the job description. If one of my managers hires someone directly, they write the job description for those individuals. And then I review them and I give pointers and advices. Our process is pretty simple, and it's simple on purpose. If you're resume caught the attention of the recruiter. And we have several recruiters, and they are the first one to look at the resumes, and they get a list from me or my managers about what exactly we're looking for in a resume to pass them on to us. And so if you got the attention of a recruiter, they reviewed their resume, they give them a call. That's the 30-minute, the well-known 30-minute recruiter call, just re-verifying the basics. And if you pass that call, and again, the recruiter will ask you a couple of technical questions or questions that relates to the job performance, just to see if you do have the knowledge the minimum knowledge that's required to pass you to a second interview. And then there's a hiring manager interview where you get asked about your technical abilities, your past performance, your past jobs. And depending on what the interview is for, you might have a technical interview. It could be, we're trying to put it with the second interview as well, because I'm a very big proponent of 2 interviews and you're hired, not 6, 7, or 8 interviews and you're hired, like some companies have out there. And then we'll give you a response back within like a week or 2, which is again the time frame that I like, a week or 2, not like a month or 2, as other companies sometimes have.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about streamlining the process because the market is very hot right now. You're probably going to also lose a lot of talent if you make your hiring process overly lengthy.
Yeah, that's an issue that a lot of candidates are dealing with right now. You can see a lot of my groups in LinkedIn or other places. It's a constant complaint from job seekers that the interview processes have gone out of control. There is no reason to have 6, 7 interviews and wait for 2 months for a response. I had some people that talked to me that they were approached by recruiters, and the recruiters said, well, I don't have the job description yet, but the company is looking for someone like you. And they're like, well, why are you talking to me if you don't have the description yet and you don't have any information about the job? Like that's great, but what does that even mean? I had some candidates that talked to me that said, well, I got to like a third interview, but it then turned out that the other interview is going to be 2 weeks from now, since the person is on vacation. So it's well, can't you find somebody else to interview? It has to be that person. Like, do you think people are just sitting around and waiting for you guys to call? It's a very weird interview process this day and age. I don't remember it ever being like that before.
Yeah, I think as remote work has opened up, candidates have much more choice. And the interview process is your first impression of the company, right? So, in my opinion, it's not a good first impression of your company and how you treat your future employees. So, put aside the process, the image of that just doesn't look good when you have more options these days, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not looking good when you have those kind of hiccups in your hiring process. It just means that, and the hiring process is the front door to your company. That's how it's supposed to look like. When you have these kind of issues, it kind of deter potential candidates from entering. And candidates today, they have a lot of options as well. Not a lot of there's a lot of options for candidates, so they might not choose you despite the fact that they're perfect for you, for the role you have for them. And it's the same way that a company is interviewing you, you are interviewing the company. And I had once, like a very long time ago, that in another life, actually, almost, that I talked to someone, I interviewed them, and he says, well, I don't think you're a good fit for me. And I was like flumbergasted. It's the first time. So I got rejected by a candidate. But it's fine. It's great. If you don't think you're the right person for the job, be honest. Just says, hey guys, you know what? Thank you for interviewing me. I really appreciate it, but I don't think I'm the right candidate for you. And leave it at that. And they'll appreciate it, because then they don't continue them. And then, you show them that you're not gonna ghost them like, 99% of recruiters and hiring managers do to people that don't get accepted to jobs, which is also a big deal right now on all the groups, that the amount of ghosting. So some people got to really advanced stages in an interview and then never heard from the hiring managers or recruiters ever again.
Yeah, there's no incentive to get back to people, unfortunately, other than common courtesy. I'd love to also hear from you. How has COVID affected your talent pool?
The only change I've seen is a lot of more people just want to work from home. Like, I used to get that questions once every 20 interviews. Do you guys allowed to work from home? And now every candidate just wants to work from home, which is perfectly fine in for us. But it's just a matter of in the future, if your company is not built or suitable to work from home, there's some decisions to be made. But for personnel, like tech personnel, with a diverse workforce, we have like again over 60 offices in the United States. We don't have like a network engineer or a security analyst working from an office environment. Then we're okay from if we're working from home. But yeah, everybody wants to work from home now. They saw it's possible. They saw they do good work. Then yeah, work from home.
Would you say that the majority of candidates wanting to work from home are millennials, Generation Z, or is it across the board the same?
I actually don't know. Like I don't know the age of the candidates unless they divulge it to me and they say I'm X age. I really couldn't tell you.
Yeah, perhaps one way of knowing would maybe be their experience.
Yes, and sometimes sometimes for instance, yeah, a lot of people start to mitigate the years of their school, so they just write I have a BA and this and that without putting the years of school, and their resume just goes back 10 years because that's how resumes are supposed to go back, only 10 years. So you don't know if they have more like 10 years more or 10 years, or they just have 10 years. So they could have be 20 years, they could have 10 years, they could have 15. So a lot of the resumes today are very hard to know what the age of the candidate is, which is pretty perfectly fine with me. Like I don't need to know how old the person is.
So, speaking with candidates, what would you say are their primary motivations other than needing a job? Is it salary? Is it work from home? Is it vacation? What trends are you seeing that maybe have changed?
Candidates are more savvy about everything, their benefits. So they're always, well, not all of them, but some of them, especially if they came from the startup world, they want to know if there's, for instance, free lunches or free food in the office. They want to know if they get unlimited PTO. They want to know how many vacation days if they don't get unlimited PTO. They want to know again if they work from home. They're very interested in 401ks and the health benefits. But the candidates today are more fine tuned to what good benefits look like, especially the candidates that used to work in some sort of a startup environment.
And how much of a role or importance is continuous learning and education and training? Does that come up?
Some candidates, yeah, some candidates do ask about continuing education, and if we give some sort of a fund for them to continue learning, which my company does. Yeah, we give some money for you to continue your education, but that also comes up pretty often, but not all the time.
Going back to the interview process, can you pick out patterns, indicators that would potentially show you that someone is a good fit for the job, a good fit for your company, or has the qualities that you're looking for?
Yeah, it's an individual, I think, kind of gut feeling if somebody is a good fit for your company. That all comes down to it because there's nothing 100%. The Marines have a 70% rules, which means if it's a 70, if they're sure 70%, it equals like 100%. So the best I can do, and I follow that rule because I was also in the military back in the good old days in Israel, and we had the same thing kind of thing. It's our sentence was if there is a doubt, there is no doubt. So if you have a doubt, it's a no. It's the same. It's the same thing. If you're sure if you have a gut feeling that it is, then it is. So 70% sure, it's equals 100% sure. Well, you can have a combination of the resume. If you think it's a good fit, then the person moves forward to an interview. And if there's a chemistry, it's important to have chemistry attached to the technical knowledge or the knowledge that the person needs to bring into the company. If you have that spark, that chemistry, you got the people in the conversation get along, then you have that 70% feeling that it's going to be a good fit, and then you hire. That's why I recommend also for companies to have like a something that is a 90-day kind of rule, a 90-day hiring provision. It's a 90-day trial period. If you get into the company and you work for 90 days and you don't work out, then you say your goodbyes because you're not going to work out. But if you do work out, you continue on. And that's the only way to 100% know if somebody is the right fit. You need to work with them. You need to work with them for some sort of a period of time and see if they work out for your company or not. So that's also I recommend having like a 90-day trial period for hiring, which a lot of companies do have, but a lot of companies don't.
Yeah, you mentioned doing two rounds of interviews before making up your mind. So I'm assuming you do not do these personality tests that are like quite popular. Would love to hear your point of view on how effective those really are.
Yeah, we don't do personality tests. And I personally think that you shouldn't do personality tests. Some people are not good test takers. For instance, I'm not a good test taker. I would fail a personality test, but I do a great job. I want to think that I'm an excellent director of IT and I'm an excellent head of information security, or I wouldn't have hold this position for almost 3 years. But I wouldn't have been hired probably most likely if I had to take a one of those personality tests. It's because my mind doesn't fit that structure, doesn't fit that box. I need to maybe think 5 minutes longer. My thought process is a little bit more complicated than others. And I know that a lot of people are like me. And that's why I would fail because those tests test how fast you do certain things, or they test how fast you answer certain answers. And again, not all minds work the same. My mind doesn't work like that, so I would definitely would not have in my company for my individuals that I hire a test like that. And I'm, as you can see, I'm not for them.
Yeah, and you mentioned coming from Israel, an expat. So how do you think your culture has impacted the way you have built your team, and how has that impacted the culture within your company or the hiring culture within your company?
Uh, I, I spent 3 years in the military since from 18 to 21. So it molds you when you're in a very young age. When people in the United States going into college, they have their freedom, they have their fun. The 18-year-olds in Israel go to the military. They don't have freedom and they don't have fun. Basic training, of course, tears you down, builds you back up, and it gives you structure and it gives you different ways to think about problems and solving problems and dealing with difficulties. I think that the thing I took the most from those days is how to deal with stressful situations, how to deal with stressful environments. Whatever happens in my environment today, and I compare it to what happened back then when I was in the military, it's not that stressful. We have to deconstruct the situation. We need to see what we can do, and we need to move forward as fast as possible. We can't linger in the past. Always moving forward is part of the Israeli military teaching for war. It's always move forward, always move towards your target, and that's a part of something I took. I always move forward, always move towards the target, and then we use that when we have projects. It's never slow down the project, never shut down the project. It's always move forward and then fixing things while we go and do it while we continuing on. And it proves, and always think ahead. Think about the scenarios of what's going to happen. I didn't build the technology stack in Mercer Advisors for the pandemic, but because I built a good technology stack, it allowed Mercer Advisors to thrive during the pandemic because we had all the technology we needed to work from home in a day and a half. We moved about 425 people to work from home. We just called them up and said, "Hey, today you're working from home." They had they had their phones, they had their computers, their laptops, so they just turned them on at their house and started working. So that's a part of that came to me from the Israeli military. That always move ahead, always think ahead, always develop those scenarios, and minimize the risk when doing it.
So, would you say that coming with that problem solving and critical thinking background, does that play a role in your talent acquisition strategy? Do you look outside the box when hiring? What is your opinion on how we can be more creative in hiring?
When I personally hire, and I encourage my managers to do it as well, is to always look outside the box when hiring. And of course, it depends on um, if the candidate sticks to the basic rules of resumes, because we used to get resumes that are 11, 12, 13 pages long, and we just don't read those because we just don't have the time. But if a candidate sends us the basic 2 pages, bullet points, this short description of what they did, and they stand out, and we see a potential, then yeah, we will always ask for an interview with them. If they don't shine in the interview, it's a different thing. But if they do shine in the interview, we might hire them if no other candidates that fit the bill comes to us, and we'll give them a chance. It's just a matter of following these basic rules for your resume and putting again your best foot forward, because we need to see the potential. If your resume doesn't carry your potential, then you can't complain or want to be hired if that's not the case. But if somebody does that, then yeah, we will definitely give them a chance.
As we wrap up here today, is there anything else you would like to add?
You got me there, man.
Anything keeping you up at night? Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Right now, my baby's keeping me up at night.
Yeah, that was a dumb question.
Yeah.
You got everything off your chest. So thank you so much, Ron, for your time today. If anybody would like to reach out and pick your brain or just have a chat, what's the best way for people to find you and connect with you?
On LinkedIn, that'd be the best way. Just Ron Sharon.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today on CyberSecurity Heroes. And to the rest of you, we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Brendan.
That's a wrap for this episode of CyberSecurity Heroes. Practical and experiential knowledge on a day in the life of security heroes. Catch our next episode by subscribing or following through your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, please leave a rating for the show. They really help a lot. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.